Hey, what's on, guys? Welcome to my spoiler-free review of Marvel's Luke Cage Season 2. So Luke Cage Season 2 takes place after the events of Defenders Season 1, after the events of Luke Cage Season 1. And I have to say, I was pretty excited for this season, just mostly because I really liked the first season, even though it had its flaws, and it was a little bit corny, but I still enjoyed it. And Season 2 kind of continues in that way, with an interesting twist. So the one thing that I've noticed was usually whenever we dive into like the second season of any of these Marvel Netflix shows, is that they usually get darker and the writing usually gets a lot more mature. Luke Cage Season 2 is a little bit interesting because in terms of like the overall tone of the show, it's maintained the same level that it was for Season 1. Or I could even say it's even gotten toned down just a little bit, but with the overall writing, that's definitely the part that's matured compared to Season 1, and that has both its pros and cons that you can see pretty visibly throughout the season. So stuff that I actually liked about this season would be my culture's Luke Cage has kind of just evolved throughout the season, because at the beginning of the season, he's ready to just handle crime, and he has a basic idea of what he wants to do, and he's doing everything he can. And he's taking out all these different crimes, and he's got this whole like layout of all the different crimes he wants to take out and whatnot. And then you see how that progresses over the course of the season, and then by the time we get to the end, it's a completely different ball game. So just seeing how the characters developed throughout the season was probably the strongest part of this series, in my opinion. The other strongest piece would probably be just the overall writing of the show. The way that they handled a lot of like the slower situations in terms of like what they were talking about, I still felt pretty invested. Even though the writing did slow down a lot, I still felt pretty invested in the characters. So that is one thing. If you're expecting to go into the show for the action, then there is action, but it's less than what it was in Season 1. And that might upset a lot of people, because the action was definitely one of like the most fun parts, in my opinion. But this series is mostly trying to continue the story. It's trying to find this balance between focusing on the villains and focusing on Luke Cage's story, and how they all eventually just connect together. And I think that's something that people might not really click with. The other thing that I really liked about the show would be they introduced a lot of new characters. By the time you get to like the second half of the season, you're really pulled in to these new characters. You actually care what happens to them. So that's one thing Marvel's always been really good at with their Netflix shows, is just getting us invested in a lot of new characters at once. But sadly, I think after this is where the series kind of falls short. Like I said earlier, the writing, the show slows down a lot, and it has some major pacing problems. And it's really visible throughout most of the season. Throughout the first like 7 or 8 episodes, it really just slows down. There's definitely some moments where it does pick up and there's action, but it feels like it goes by super fast, just because all the like talking sequences are just so dragged out. It's still really good writing, and you can tell the actors are really putting their all into it, but it still just feels really dragged out. And then the other thing would probably be the show does eventually pick up around episode like 8 or 9, and then it just goes from there until the end. The other thing is, Marvel has this whole formula for all their like solo character series, like standalone series. Each new season has to have 13 episodes, or a lot of the new seasons for these shows have a little bit of that like 13 episode fatigue. Because you can feel it a little bit in Season 2 of Jessica Jones, and you can really feel it in Season 2 of Luke Cage. So that's something you really want to be aware of. And I just feel like if the show was condensed down, even like 3 episodes, it would have just been a lot more easy to digest. But the show does manage to pull through, even apart from all of that. Mostly it has to do with like the second half of the season is definitely the part, like the more interesting half of the show. The other problem that I had with the show would be the new villain. I'm not going to say who it is, but it's a pretty famous villain from the comics. And I feel like his whole appearance on the show was a little bit short-lived. I think it mostly has to do with just the way that he was treated in the first half of the show. He definitely had some like outstanding moments in the first few episodes, but then it really slows down for like another 3 or 4 episodes, and then it picks back up later on. For this new villain, they had all this potential to really make him like the next big bad, but it just didn't work. I just felt like, because with Luke Cage is an interesting character. He's a lot like Superman, because it's like, what kind of villain can you actually go for that can really like damage Luke Cage? And that's what they're trying to go for here. Is they're trying to find this balance between how they can hurt Luke Cage like psychologically and mentally, and then how they can hurt him like physically. So they're really trying to find that balance even in season 2. And I feel like season 1 handled that a little bit better. The show does have a lot of appearances from characters from other Marvel series, such as certain characters from Daredevil, certain characters from Iron Fist, and there's a lot of mentions for characters from other series as well. And there's one specific episode, I'm not going to say which one it is, but a certain character from a certain series does show up, and I would say that was probably the best episode in the series. And it kind of begs the question is, does Luke Cage really work as a standalone character anymore, especially after the events of season 2? The way season 2 ended, it leaves you with a lot more questions than answers, because it's like you set up this really interesting plot twist that nobody was expecting. Now, where do you go from here? And especially during this season throughout, because the show on its own, just about Luke Cage, I just feel like the pacing just completely just threw the show out of whack. And that's the thing that really makes you question is, can Luke Cage work as a standalone show anymore? When you see that episode, you'll know what I'm talking about. I can't really dive too much into it for spoiler reasons. I think that's one way how they could keep Luke Cage's series kind of just keep going. It doesn't really have to be season 3, but more of like a combination of the two characters, and have that as like the season 3 for Luke Cage. So that's something I think would be really interesting to see. But overall, Luke Cage season 2 is a good season. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but there's definitely a lot of flaws. And if you're a fan of the first season, then I still think you should watch this season, because the story is still good, it's still decent, and you're definitely gonna like what they do with the new villain, even if doesn't quite stay as long as he should have. It's still something I think you guys would enjoy. Overall, I give Luke Cage season 2 a 7.6 out of 10. So let me know what you guys think about Luke Cage season 2. Have you seen it? Have you not seen it? What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you have mixed feelings? I think this is one of those series that everyone's gonna have mixed feelings for. Mostly because everybody loved the first season, and then the second season really slows down. So I'm really curious to see what your guys' response is to season 2. So let me know in the comments down below. And if you have any other comments or questions, leave those down below too, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you want to see more reviews like this and more superhero content, subscribe to see more. I'll see you guys next time.